In 1903, all the plans were finalised and work on the new station began. Demolition and rebuilding of the new station was undertaken in sections. This prevented the station or the railroads being closed and to minimise disruption. The project was enormous. Over 10 stories was dug down. Over 10,000 workers dug out over 100,000 tonnes of soil and debris. So much was dug that the horses and carts could barely cope. Work was done round the clock, with only a stop for a few moments to allow trains to pass. The first section near Lexington Avenue forced many people out of their homes. Construction was slow and costly, costing over $180 million by the end of 1910. Meanwhile, research was being developed for the electric trains. Taking inspiration from the German and Volks Railway in Brighton, the General Electric Company developed a new fleet of electric trains which ran on electric third rail. The speeds that the engines ran were comparable with their band-steamed counterparts. The first electric train ran from the New York Central Line in 1906, with the other railways following suit shortly after. The last train left what remained of the old station on June 5, 1910, and the new terminal was opened at 1 minute past midnight on the 2nd of February 1913. Despite the grandeur of the new building, the opening was surprisingly a modest affair, with only a private dinner being provided for the architects and 100 guests. But within just a few hours, the new station had already catered for over 150,000 people. Just as Vanderbilt had predicted years earlier, the new station promoted development in the area. The aptly named Terminal City began to spring up all around them. If you remember in my last video, I spoke about air rights. Here, the air rights started to pay dividend. When the new station opened, it was estimated that the ground surrounding the station and the air above it was worth an estimated $2 to $3 million apiece. Thanks to the impressive station, the property land value surrounding it rose massively, and with it, the air rights. The Grand Central raised millions in selling the rights for the likes of the Chrysler Building and the Waldorf Astoria. Growth was so great in the area that in just 5 years, plans had to be drawn up to expand the station yet again. The terminal reopened in 1924 to a much higher fanfare than before, and it was opened by the Grand Central Art Gallery. The Art Gallery established a new art school which occupied the East Wing for 20 years before it relocated. Passenger numbers continued to rise, right up until the 1950s. The rise in air travel and the increase in vehicle traffic meant that many commuters moved away from the tracks. The demand for office space soon began to threaten the station, and there were multiple proposals for a new skyscraper on the site. New York Central felt the pressure of the developers and the strain of the loss of the revenue, and it caused the railroad to face bankruptcy for the first time. To save itself, the railroad merged with the Pennsylvania Railroad to create the Central Penn Railroad. The Penn Railroad too wanted to put a skyscraper on the site, but luckily for the station, the New York City Landmarks Commission saw the station's potential as a city landmark and fought to protect it. The city took the fight right up to the Supreme Court, and thanks to their efforts and the air rights protecting the station above, the station was saved for the nation. While the majority of the station was saved, the station had become run down and the beautiful interior was overrun with adverts, and the station was a shadow of its former self. The hotel next to the terminal was purchased by Donald Trump, and despite his questionable presidency techniques, he is very good at restoring buildings, and the hotel won an Excellence Award following its restoration. In 1988, the station was in badly need of repair. A bombing 10 years earlier had caused damage in the terminal, and there were calls to turn part of the concourse into retail space. $113 million was set aside for the station to be completely restored. The adverts were removed, and the years of smoke and grime were cleaned, revealing beautiful constellation and landscapes. The roof was a spectacular find. It depicts a mural of the Mediterranean sky, but in fact, the mural is upside down. It was supposed to depict the sky as we perceive it looking up, as we would do at night. But in fact, it depicts the God's view looking down. It's a little confusing, but when the mishap was uncovered, it was too late to correct it. The station boasts some of the most unusual features of any station in the world. It has 67 tracks and 44 platforms spanning 2 concourses, and as the terminal suggests, all the tracks terminate at the Grand Central. The station can cater for up to 750,000 people per day. Many don't just use the trains. Some go to try the fancy restaurants or take leisure time in the shops, or they can even partake in a game of tennis. The station has its own police department and hospital. All around the station there are links to the Vanderbilt family. Its family crest of acorns and oak leaves adorn the station. From the moment of entry, the building screams opulence and glory. Visitors are greeted with 10 huge gold chandeliers. And one of the most striking features on the concourse is the clock in the information booth. The 4 facing clock faces are made from opal and are set in gold and are valued at over $10 million. It has become the best meeting place, with many New Yorkers knowing to meet each other at the clock. Like the Tiffany's clock at the entrance, which is the largest Tiffany's clock in the world, all the clocks are set 1 minute fast, ensuring that you have that extra 60 seconds to get your train. Downstairs near the Oyster Bar, you will find the famous Whispering Gallery. The domed arches were accidentally and perfectly aligned that the smallest whisper can be transmitted from corner to corner, even over the din of the passengers around you. The vast spaces of the station has made it a multi-purpose building for many years to come. The large spaces can hold an array of events, perfectly suited, with, of course, excellent transport links. There will always be somewhere to eat, with numerous restaurants, and you can take time to relax and take in some retail time. The station has evolved much more than what Vanderbilt realised, and it's much more than just a mere station. Grand Central is simply stunning and definitely worth a visit. You guys are so lucky, and yes, I am really jealous.